are still struggling with some sort of a fear. Now, my clients typically call it an irrational fear, something that they know is holding them back from living their best life. This video is for you because I want to share with you how you can actually overcome this fear easily and effortlessly. And I'm not joking. Remember, as a hypnotherapist, people typically come to me because they have already been through all kinds of therapies and techniques and tactics and all kinds of interventions to help them through that struggle, only to find out it didn't work. And they're often left stuck with whether it's fear or procrastination, self sabotage, addiction, this unwanted behavior, and actually feel incredibly upset, frustrated, defeated because they've jumped through all kinds of hoops only to find out the problem is still there. Now, in regard to our topic today, let's stick to calling it an irrational fear. Now, what does that mean? For example, something like fear of driving, fear of bridges, fear of speaking, fear of standing up for yourself, fear of getting into a confrontation, fear of going live on social media, fear of posting videos about yourself and about your business or something like that. So, any kind of fear where you know that other people don't have the same fear, but you do. Fear of flying, of course, comes to mind, right? So that's the kind of fear I'm talking about. And this is something so many people struggle with and think that I just need to be stronger. I just need to feel the fear and do it anyway. A lot of times, these people are given all kinds of interesting pep talk, like, hey, what's wrong with you? Just get over yourself, do it anyway. And often that will just cause more guilt and shame and more fear because then the person's like, well, I don't understand what's wrong with me. I don't understand. Like, other people can do it, but I can't do it. And that will create like even more bottled up stress, as if the person wasn't already upset enough, as if this problem wasn't already big enough. It just adds when people say things like do positive thinking and breathe through it, and the thing is, those things actually are, even though it sounds like it's good advice, it's actually quite disrespectful, and it's that advice is irrational because it doesn't work, okay? So I want to explain to you that what you don't need, okay? You do not need more courage. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed, okay? You don't need more willpower. And please, whatever you do, I do not approve of pushing yourself and making yourself do it. That is not a good idea because with that suggestion, you're actually creating a lot more stress and pressure in your nervous system that is already stressed out. So that's really not good advice. Okay. So please do not force yourself. Don't make yourself. Don't tell yourself that there's something wrong with you, that you should have already overcome this because you're an adult or something like that. Again, when people give you advice like that, please understand they don't understand much about human psychology or human behavior, and they certainly don't know how our system works, okay? So I want to explain to you why you have this fear so that you can understand yourself at a deeper level instead of shame and blame yourself constantly. And then I'm also going to show you how you can overcome it so that you can finally be free. Okay? And remember, as a hypnotherapist, an irrational fear, quite frankly, is one of the easiest things that I get to work with my clients through because it's so contextual. Okay? When somebody comes to me and they say procrastination, self sabotage, depression, anxiety, addiction, that's a much broader subject that typically is the person's life is consumed with it. But when it comes to a contextual fear, like fear of driving, fear of flying, fear of speaking, it's a very specific fear that only happens in certain instances, right? Maybe for you, it happens when you need to talk to authority figures or people that you consider to be higher than you or whatever, right? And that's when that fear shows up and all of a sudden you are not able to speak up. And I've worked with so many professionals who had fear of speaking in the boardroom, as an example, right? Here is this important room with these important people, and then all of a sudden they walk into that room and they can't get a word out because they feel too self-conscious, too nervous, too uncomfortable. They think and feel like everybody else is much smarter. They feel inferior, insecure, and that causes them to then have fear of speaking. And of course, this is not useful. This is a very expensive problem to have when you know you need to be one of the decision makers, you need to be one of the authority figures, but if your body betrays you during those instances, no bueno. Yeah? See? Okay. Now, here is, okay, and remember, this topic, this video, I'm referring to any irrational fear, what you might consider irrational, any and all, okay? Fear of snakes. I was recently working with a person who is so interesting, not fear of flying necessarily, but there's a certain activity on the plane that she couldn't do because of this fear. Anyhow, so that's why please don't judge yourself that I should have overcome this or I should just be normal. Yeah, that sounds really good on paper, but in real life, not so easy. So, the reason you have this fear, you need to understand, is because, and by the way, all those other techniques and tools and therapies, they talk to your mind, which is the logic part of you, which is great. That's a good start and that's necessary. But none of those techniques, none of those methods talk to the part that controls the mind. Let's repeat that. None of those techniques, therapies, traditional talk therapy, talk to the part that controls your mind. That's your subconscious. And guess what? Your subconscious is in control, in charge, responsible for your actions, your behaviors, your habits, your beliefs, your emotions. So if we don't get the subconscious on board, there's no way this is going to work for you. You are just going to continue forcing yourself, pressurizing yourself, pushing yourself when you're barking up the wrong tree because you're still using logic. Right? And you might even have a wonderful coach who sounds so important and great, and they tell you, feel the fear and do it, and I believe in you. That's BS, okay? I can't stand when so-called hoity-toity up there coaches, therapists talk like this to their clients as if they were superior, you should feel the fear and do it anyway. That's horrible advice, okay? No, please don't feel the fear and do it anyway. Instead, actually learn how to manipulate your own conscious and subconscious so that when the two of them are on board and they communicate to each other and they're aligned with each other, you can actually do these activities with a lot more ease, with a lot more comfort inside of yourself, with a lot more confidence, and you can finally get to enjoy yourself during those moments instead of feeling pressurized. So the reason you have this fear is because of either one or several experiences from the past. That is when your subconscious learned, oh my goodness, speaking equals danger. Because maybe in third grade, I'm just giving an example. This is a very generalized idea, okay? Maybe in third grade, you wanted to do a great job. You raised your hand in the classroom and you said whatever you want. And all of a sudden, the whole classroom laughed and the teacher gave you a bad grade. Well, that was a very humiliating exercise. That caused you a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, blame, who knows what. And your subconscious filed that away as, you see, speaking, bad idea. We're not doing that anymore. Speaking publicly, no more. And in that moment, we'll install a program that anytime you are now possibly around people, around authority figures, maybe in a crowded room, all of a sudden your nervous system clams up, you're like can't get a word out, and you're like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. And the question isn't what's wrong with me. The question is, what happened to you? And how did what happened to you impact you and affect you? And as a hypnotherapist, the first thing I will do with you is go to the root cause. Hey, let's take a look at why are you the way you are? Why are certain situations so difficult for you? Let's take a look at what happens to you so that you can understand. And then literally be like, no wonder I feel this way if since, I don't know, third grade, this is the program that had been running me. Like, here you are, an adult, you want to do a great job, you want to show up confidently, but somehow you can't. Yeah, because your subconscious is running the show. You're not running the show. So many people don't know that they still have childhood programming controlling their adult life. But nobody tells you this. Why? Because they don't know. Your doctor doesn't know this. Your therapist doesn't know this. Your psychologist doesn't know this. They often will diagnose, they will talk about the problem to no end, they will dig around in childhood forever. Okay, sounds like a good idea, except person walks out, the patient walks out, they still have the same problem. Here, even after just one session, you're going to begin to notice a shift, a change, because we work directly with the subconscious program that is already there, that is causing all these problems in your life. You see? And then, needless to say, you get to reprogram that old program that is causing you anxiety and fear and worrying and catastrophized thinking. We're going to replace that and be like, cool, up until now, I get it. This is how I was. But actually, what I want when I show up in the boardroom, I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel confident. I want to feel like I own the room, right? And this is something, this is a program that you can install. I like to call them program, but really it's a concoction of beliefs, emotions, behaviors that eventually, once you go back out there, you then become like a well-oiled machine the way you want to be instead of the way you used to be. You see? And the best part about this, not only does it work relatively quickly, especially when it comes to something like a contextual fear, like fear of driving, flying, speaking, okay? Not only does it work relatively quickly, but we can do this naturally. There is no need for dangerous drugs with side effects. There is no need for chill pills. You know what I mean? You have the resources inside of you to help you through this. Remember, up until now, you get triggered, subconscious response, the program runs the show. You're like, I don't know what happened to me. Yeah, because this happens within a split second. And by the time you can actually think about it, which is the logic, your subconscious is already running this old program. And so it's like, that's often why you feel like you're 2 steps ahead, 3 steps behind, something like that. You know the American saying. Anyhow, um, let's see if we have any questions. So anyhow, if you have any questions about this type of fear or any kind of emotions that are in your way, so to speak, instead of using force and pressure and thinking that this is just how you are, or this is your personality, or this is your character, or you're just shy, no, that is how you have been for a long time, but this is something you can break through easily, effortlessly, and naturally. And as I tell my clients, even after just one session of hypnotherapy and working with your subconscious, you begin to notice a shift and a change, a pleasant shift. As Carl Jung said, until you make conscious what's in your unconscious, it will control our life. And then we often blame it on fate or genetics, or that's just how I am, or it's the economy's fault, or my parents' fault, or my past fault. And yeah, sure, we can blame forever, but instead of blaming, how about we fix it and become aware, what is it that's controlling you? What is in your subconscious? And once you gain conscious awareness of it, and then you can change it, that's when your life begins to change. That's when you begin to change. And I always tell my clients, you can keep the change, right? No extra charge, because it seems so effortless, but that's because you're so powerful. When you know the part to work with, then the work becomes easy. It's just like knowing, knowing which, how do we say that? There's a metaphor for that, right? Knowing which screw is loose. It sounds kind of funny because obviously we're talking about a human being, but as a metaphor, this is so accurate because if we keep poking and prodding and barking up the wrong tree, no wonder it's not working. So if you apply the right method, the method that actually communicates with your subconscious, this will work for you. So any questions, please let me know. I gotta go because I have an appointment. And otherwise, in my bio, there's always a link there. You can book a free call if you want to chat with me and, maybe have a question or something that you would like to explore. I'm here for you. I'll see you next time.